Nature is our greatest creator, but also the most skillful killer. Are you drawn to these views, making you dream of being there? Don't be. Today I'll introduce you to 13 corners of the planet that seem like paradise, but in reality are deadly traps. We'll travel from a lake that turns living creatures into stone to a stream from which no one has ever returned. And our final stop will be a place with an amazing name, the Rainbow Valley. But once you find out what creates this beauty, you'll probably never want to look at it again. Subscribe to the channel and give it a like in advance, because we're starting right now. Imagine a scorching hot Texas, the unbearable stuffiness, and then you find salvation, the Jacob's Well. This place looks like an anomaly, as if reality itself has glitched. Amidst an ordinary stream, a perfectly round abyss gapes open. The water is so clear that the children diving in seem to be floating in zero gravity. Thousands of curious tourists come here for spectacular photos, unaware that right beneath their feet lies the entrance to one of the most dangerous underwater labyrinths on Earth. This is not just a water pit, it's a throat leading straight to the underworld. The visible shaft, 10 meters deep, is just the antechamber. The real horror lies deeper, in a system of 4 caves plunged into eternal darkness. The passages there are so narrow that divers have to remove their tanks and push them ahead in order to squeeze through. But the main enemy here is the bottom. The water seems crystal clear until the first careless movement. The slightest flick of a fin and silt rises in a dense cloud. Transparency instantly gives way to a murky suspension. Visibility drops to zero. Flashlights become useless. A person finds themselves trapped in complete darkness. This is exactly how even experienced divers perish, especially in narrow, untouched passages. In the murky water, they lose their sense of direction, unable to tell up from down. Panic triples their oxygen consumption. They die in agony, suffocating just a few dozen meters away from children playing peacefully on the surface. At least 9 bodies have been recovered from the bottom. The most horrifying story happened in 1979, when 2 young people died here. One got stuck and the other tried to help him. Rescuers said that one of them, in desperation, tried to dig an exit through the gravel with his bare hands. He broke his fingers on the rocks, but never saw the light. There used to be a sign with a skull underwater. "Stop, nothing in this cave is worth your life." But it was removed because daredevils saw it as a challenge. Jacob's Well is a perfect trap. Above, it's a paradise. Below, a claustrophobic hell that doesn't forgive mistakes. Let's move to England, to Yorkshire. Here, among ancient forests, flows the Bolton Strid stream. At first glance, it looks like something out of a children's fairy tale. A narrow strip of water that seems you could leap across with a running start, or even just step over. Tourists stroll around and artists capture the scenery. But this beauty is the most terrifying illusion nature has ever created. Before you is officially the most dangerous body of water on the planet, from which no one has ever come out alive. The secret of the Strid's deadliness lies in its geology. A little upstream, this is the wide and full-flowing River Wharfe. But suddenly the riverbed narrows and this colossal mass of water is forced to squeeze through a narrow stone crevice. Geologists say that here, the river is literally lying on its side. What we see on the surface is just the tip of the iceberg. Underwater, the banks spread apart, forming a mushroom shape. Beneath your feet lies a deep abyss with raging currents and tangled caves. If someone slips on a wet stone and falls into the water, they don't stand a chance. Absolutely none. They're not just swept away by the current, they're instantly sucked down into the depths, as if by a vacuum cleaner. The current here acts like a hydraulic press. It drags its victim under the rocky banks and pins them against the ceiling of an underwater cave. Life jackets and swimming skills are useless here. The statistics for this place are frightening in their uncompromising nature. The mortality rate, if you fall in, is 100%. There's a chilling story about a newlywed couple who were walking here. The woman slipped, her husband tried to grab her hand, and the water instantly swallowed them both. Their bodies were found only several days later, far downstream. Let's move on to Tanzania. Here, in the middle of the scorched savanna, there is a lake that looks as if you've landed on Mars. Its water is an unnatural blood-red color, and the shores are covered with a strange white crust. This is Lake Natron. And this is probably the only body of water on the planet capable of turning living creatures into stone statues like the mythical Medusa Gorgon. The secret of this place is its monstrous chemistry. The water here is oversaturated with sodium salts and carbonates. The pH level reaches 12. For comparison, it's almost like bathing in concentrated ammonia or drain cleaner. In addition, the water temperature often rises to 60 degrees Celsius. This isn't just a hot bath, it's a caustic chemical reactor. If an animal, whether a bird or a bat, dies here, it doesn't decompose as usual. Its body is instantly saturated with soda and lime, hardens, and becomes mummified. The famous photographer Nick Brandt found dozens of such statues here, perfectly preserved in their post-mortem poses. Birds sit on branches or lie on the shore, resembling eerie stone sculptures whose flesh will never decay. For a human, contact with this water guarantees third-degree chemical burns. If you have even the slightest scratch or cut on your body, the pain will be as if acid has been poured into the wound. Splashes that accidentally get into your eyes can instantly cause blindness. The only creatures that have learned to survive here are the lesser flamingos. Their legs are covered with tough, horny skin that works like rubber boots. But for everyone else, Lake Natron is a beautiful, surreal pool of death, best admired only from a helicopter. Deep in the impenetrable jungles of Peru, in the very heart of the Amazon, flows a river that modern science long considered nothing more than a beautiful but terrifying legend. Spanish conquistadors returning from the Golden Expeditions told with horror of a land where the water boils and the air burns your lungs. Geologists merely laughed at these tales, insisting that the existence of such a river was impossible, since the nearest active volcano is 700 kilometers away from this place. But the legends were not lying. The river exists. The local tribes call it Shanai Timpishka, which translates as boiled with the heat of the sun. And this is perhaps the most terrifying natural cauldron on planet Earth. This is not a cozy hot spring in Iceland, nor a spa resort for tourists. Before you is a full-fledged, wide river stretching over 6 kilometers and reaching depths of up to 6 meters, which literally boils. The water temperature here ranges from 80 to 100 degrees Celsius. The air above the riverbed quivers with thick white steam, creating a mystical, almost otherworldly atmosphere. But as soon as you get closer, you feel an unpleasant heat like from an open oven. If you slip on the wet clay bank and fall into the water, you won't have a single chance of survival. You won't just get burned, you'll start to cook alive, like meat in a giant pot of soup. Geophysicist Andres Russo, who was the first to study and describe this place for the scientific community, has witnessed horrifying scenes that happen here regularly. The river is merciless to all living things. Any careless animal, a frog, a snake, or a small rodent that falls into the current is doomed to a painful death. Local shamans describe the process of dying with frightening anatomical precision. The first thing that happens to the victim is that their eyes instantly turn white. The temperature is so high that the protein in the eyeballs coagulates in a split second, rendering the animal blind the moment it falls in. Then the real nightmare begins. The victim tries to swim out, instinctively paddling with its limbs, but every movement only hastens the end. The high temperature penetrates through the skin, and the muscles literally separate from the bones, cooking right on the living creature. The body loses the ability to move within seconds. The animal opens its mouth, trying to breathe or scream, but instead of air, it swallows boiling water, which immediately burns its internal organs. Death occurs from pain shock and the total destruction of the body. The river carries downstream not a living creature anymore, but a partially cooked broth. The most amazing thing is that Shanai Timpishka is not the result of volcanic activity. It is a unique geothermal anomaly. Water seeps deep into the Earth's interior, heats up there to extreme temperatures, and under enormous pressure bursts back out through cracks in the crust, like blood from the planet's arteries. The local residents treat the river with respectful fear. They use the steam for healing procedures and even cook corn and meat in the river, simply lowering them into the water on a rope. But they know the main rule of the jungle. You can only approach the shore with steady feet and a cool head, because Shanai Timpishka does not forgive mistakes. Deep underground, in the bowels of the Chihuahuan Desert in Mexico, there is a place that looks like a set come to life from a big-budget science fiction movie. If you've ever seen Superman's Fortress of Solitude, you can easily imagine the Crystal Cave. It is a gigantic underground chamber pierced by colossal, semi-transparent crystals that look like frozen ice. These selenite crystals are the largest in the world. Some of them reach 11 meters in length, weigh 55 tons, and are so wide that you can walk across them like a bridge. Visually, this place tricks your brain. Looking at these snow-white, sparkling facets, you instinctively expect to feel Arctic cold and frosty freshness. But this is the cruelest optical illusion created by nature. In reality, you are not looking into an icy kingdom, but into the scorching throat of the devil. The Crystal Cave is perhaps the most beautiful natural oven on the planet. It is located 300 meters underground, right above a magma reservoir. The air temperature here consistently stays at 58 degrees Celsius. Some might say, so what? A good sauna can get even hotter. But what kills here is not the heat itself, but another invisible factor, humidity. In this cave, it is an uncompromising, absolute 100%. And it is this that turns it into a deadly trap. The physics of death here works in a frighteningly simple way. Under normal conditions, when a person is hot, they sweat. Sweat evaporates from the skin, cooling the body. This is our natural thermoregulation system, our built-in air conditioner. But at 100% humidity, the air is already so saturated with water that it physically cannot absorb any more moisture. Your sweat pours off you, but it doesn't evaporate, it just covers you in a sticky film. The body's cooling system fails instantly. You start to overheat from the inside, like a kettle forgotten in the oven. Without special equipment, the human body can withstand this atmosphere for no more than 10, at most 15 minutes. After that, irreversible processes begin. The blood thickens, the heart starts beating furiously, trying to pump this viscous liquid and cool the organs. But all it pumps is boiling water. The brain literally cooks inside its own skull. The most terrifying sensation described by scientists is breathing. Since the air temperature is higher than your body temperature and the humidity is at its maximum, the coldest place in the cave becomes your lungs. Moisture from the air begins to condense right inside you. You are not just burning alive, you are also slowly drowning, choking on the water that forms in your own airways. Even professional researchers can't just walk in here. They look like astronauts. They wear special orange jumpsuits lined with ice packs, and they breathe through respirators connected to cooling backpacks. But even with such equipment, the time spent in the cave is strictly limited to 40 minutes. After that, you have to get out immediately, or heat stroke will kill you even through the protection. The Crystal Cave is a majestic temple of death. It's a place where nature has created incredible beauty, but has done everything possible to keep people from admiring it. Here, you are an uninvited guest, and you have only 15 minutes before your heart stops forever. If you've ever wanted to know what the surface of another planet looks like, or perhaps even hell itself, you don't need to go to space. You just need to head to the northeast of Ethiopia to the Danakil Depression. This place is the most surreal and brutal spot on the map of Africa. Before your eyes unfolds an incredible psychedelic landscape, neon yellow, poisonous green, and orange fields dotted with strange salt mushrooms. Photos from here look like computer graphics. But this beauty is 100% real. And it is 100% toxic. Danakil officially holds the title of the hottest place on Earth by average annual temperature. Here, the ground literally burns under your feet, and the thermometer rarely drops below 45 degrees Celsius. But it's not the heat that kills here. The main enemy is the air and the soil. This area is located at the junction of 3 tectonic plates, which are slowly tearing apart the Earth's crust, releasing the poisonous breath of the depths. Those very beautiful multicolored pools that attract photographers so much are actually reservoirs of concentrated acid. The water here is oversaturated with sulfur, iron, and salt. The pH level in these springs is close to 0. That's even stronger than the battery acid in your car. If you accidentally slip and your foot lands in such a pool, the liquid will instantly eat through your shoe and skin down to the bone, leaving severe chemical burns that hardly ever heal. But even if you watch your step, danger lurks with every breath you take. The air in the Danakil Depression is a toxic cocktail. From the many fumaroles and geysers, clouds of chlorine, sulfur, and carbon dioxide are constantly erupting. Being here without a professional respirator is deadly dangerous. Inhaling these fumes causes an instant burning sensation in the throat and nose. When chlorine enters the moist environment of the lungs, it reacts with water and turns into hydrochloric acid, burning a person from the inside. The lungs swell, and the victim essentially drowns in their own blood and fluids. The local salt miners, the Afar people, work here under inhuman conditions, and their life expectancy is catastrophically low. Tourists are only allowed here in small groups and only when accompanied by armed guards, because in addition to the acid and heat, kidnappings by local bandits often occur here. The Danakil Depression is proof that the brightest beauty in nature is often a sign of the greatest danger. It is an alien landscape that is not meant for carbon-based life forms. Let's move to West Africa, to the picturesque mountains of Cameroon. Here, in the crater of an extinct volcano, lies Lake Nyos. At first glance, this place seems to embody tranquility and serenity. Deep blue water, green hillsides, silence. For centuries, local people lived on its shores, raised livestock, and considered the lake a sacred gift from the gods, providing water and fertility. But they didn't know they were living on the lid of a giant soda bottle, just waiting to be shaken. Nyos is one of only 3 known exploding lakes in the world, and it holds the title of the deadliest silent killer in history. The tragedy that forever changed the face of this region occurred on the night of August 21, 1986. That evening, nothing foretold disaster. The villages in the valleys below the lake were getting ready for bed. But deep underwater, at the bottom of the lake, carbon dioxide had been accumulating for years, rising up from volcanic depths. Under the immense pressure of the water, the gas dissolved, saturating the lower layers to the limit. The lake had turned into a ticking time bomb. That night, something disturbed the fragile balance of the water layers. An extremely rare natural phenomenon occurred, a limnological disaster. The lake quite literally exhaled. A massive bubble of carbon dioxide burst to the surface, lifting tons of water from the bottom. Local residents heard a strange rumble like distant thunder, but many didn't even wake up. A gigantic cloud burst from the crater, over 1.5 million tons of pure carbon dioxide. Since carbon dioxide is heavier than air, this invisible cloud didn't rise into the sky, but instead flowed densely, like an avalanche, down the mountain slopes into the valleys where people were sleeping. It was a perfect, silent wave of death. It moved at nearly 100 kilometers per hour, filling the lowlands, displacing oxygen, and extinguishing kerosene lamps in the houses. People didn't suffocate in the usual sense. They didn't cough or gasp for air. They simply lost consciousness from hypoxia after a couple of breaths and died in their sleep. Death was instantaneous and total. The cloud covered the villages of Nyos, Subum, and Cha. When the sun rose the next morning, the valley was plunged into an eerie silence. No birds sang, no cows mooed, no dogs barked. Even flies and insects had dropped dead. Only a few survived, those who had spent the night on higher ground. When they came down, they saw a scene straight out of a horror movie. Thousands of human and animal corpses lay on the ground without any visible injuries. It seemed as if time had simply stopped. In just one night, the lake killed 1,746 people and 3,500 head of cattle. Lake Nyos itself was transformed beyond recognition. From blue, it turned blood red due to iron stirred up from the bottom, as if nature itself had marked the scene of the crime. Today, scientists have installed special degassing pipes in the lake, which act like valves, constantly releasing gas in small amounts to prevent another explosion. But the fear has not gone away. Lake Nyos is a reminder that the most terrifying natural disasters are not always accompanied by fire and destruction. Sometimes death comes absolutely silently, in the form of an invisible cloud that doesn't even give you a chance to wake up. Russia-Kamchatka, the land of volcanoes, geysers, and wild, untamed nature. Here, in the Kronotsky Nature Reserve, at the foot of the Kikpinish volcano, there is a place that looks like the perfect spot for a picnic. Lush green grass, picturesque slopes, absolute silence. But this silence is unnatural. If you look closely at the grass, you'll notice strange mounds. These aren't rocks, they're corpses. Bears, wolverines, foxes, birds. They lie here by the dozens, without visible wounds or injuries, as if they simply lay down to rest. This is the Valley of Death, a natural gas chamber that mercilessly kills everything with lungs. This place was discovered by accident, and quite recently, in 1975. Unlike other geothermal zones where everything looks scorched and dead, the Valley of Death is deceptively beautiful and full of life, which ends right here. The secret of its deadly nature lies in a unique cocktail of gases escaping from cracks in the Earth's crust. It's not just carbon dioxide or hydrogen sulfide. Here, hydrocyanic acid and hydrogen cyanide seep from underground, substances whose effects are similar to those of chemical warfare agents. These gases are heavier than air, so they don't rise into the atmosphere but instead accumulate in low-lying areas and ravines, forming an invisible poisonous lake up to 1 meter high from the ground. The valley acts like a conveyor belt of death, creating a gruesome food chain. The scenario is always the same. First, in the spring, when the snow melts, small birds fly in or rodents come running to the warm patches of bare ground. Once they enter the gas cloud, they die within minutes from paralysis of the respiratory center. Their bodies become bait for small predators, foxes and wolverines. They descend into the lowland for easy prey, take a couple of breaths, and also remain there forever. The smell of carrion attracts the top of the food chain, huge bears and rare stellars, sea eagles. They enter the danger zone and die next to what would have been their meal. Scientists working in the reserve have found real layered burials here, where the remains of foxes lay atop the skeletons of rodents, and above them, the carcasses of bears. The creepiest thing is that corpses in the Valley of Death take an astonishingly long time to decompose. The poisonous atmosphere suppresses the activity of decay bacteria, creating a frightening preservation effect. The animals look as if they died just yesterday, even though they may have been lying here for weeks, deceiving new victims with their appearance. Let's move to the United States, to the picturesque state of New Hampshire. Here stands Mount Washington. If you look at it in the summer, it will seem to you like just a majestic hill, perfect for a family hike or picnic. Its height is only 1,917 meters. That's a trivial number for any mountaineer. You can even get here by car along an old paved road. It gives the impression of being the most accessible and safest tourist spot in the world. But that's a fatal mistake, which has already claimed the lives of more than 150 people. Mount Washington officially holds the title of the place with the worst weather on the planet. The paradox of this mountain lies in its unique geographical location. It is situated at the intersection of winds from the South Atlantic, moist air from the ocean, and cold fronts from Canada. This creates the effect of a giant wind tunnel. The shape of the mountain acts like a funnel, compressing and accelerating air currents to incredible speeds. It was right here, on this modest summit, that in 1934 the world record for wind speed at the Earth's surface was set, a record that stood for more than 60 years, 372 kilometers per hour. To give you a sense of scale, a Category 5 hurricane, the highest category, blows at a speed of 250 kilometers per hour and can demolish concrete buildings. The wind on Mount Washington is not only strong enough to knock a person off their feet, but can actually lift them into the air and hurl them into the abyss like a rag doll. The treachery of the mountain lies in the fact that the weather here changes not by the hour, but by the minute. You might start your ascent on a sunny day wearing just a t-shirt and shorts, enjoying the views. But half an hour later, you'll be met by an icy hell at the summit. The air temperature can instantly drop to minus 40 degrees. Taking into account the gale force wind, the temperature felt on your skin can reach minus 70 degrees. In such conditions, exposed areas of skin freeze in less than a minute. Hypothermia sets in instantly. Tourists who didn't bring warm clothing die from hypothermia before they even realize what's happening. They are found sitting behind rocks, huddled up in a ball, trying to hide from the wind that cuts through any clothing. On the trail leading to the summit, there is the famous yellow sign, whose text sounds like a sentence. Stop! The area ahead has the worst weather in America. Many have died here from hypothermia, even in summer. Turn back if you do not have proper gear. But every year, there are daredevils who think this sign is just a scare tactic for kids. The building of the meteorological observatory at the summit is anchored to the rock with massive chains so that it won't be blown away by the wind. And the windows are made of bulletproof glass because ordinary glass would simply be pushed in by the wind. Australia has long earned a reputation as the continent where everything alive is trying to kill you. But even by Australian standards, Fraser Island is over the top. It is the largest sand island in the world and is included on the UNESCO World Heritage List. Snow-white beaches stretching for hundreds of kilometers, crystal clear freshwater lakes, dunes and tropical forests make it look like the perfect location for a Bounty chocolate commercial. But local lifeguards call this paradise a buffet for predators, where careless tourists are the main course. Let's start with the water. The ocean surrounding the island looks inviting, but swimming here is strictly forbidden. And it's not just about the powerful rip currents that can drag even an Olympic champion out to sea. The waters around Fraser are teeming with sharks. This is one of the favorite hunting grounds for great white and tiger sharks, which come frighteningly close to the shore. But even if you're lucky enough not to encounter a shark, you'll still have to deal with Irukandji jellyfish. They are the size of a fingernail, almost invisible in the water, but their venom causes a syndrome in which a person experiences such excruciating pain throughout their body that they beg doctors to kill them just to make it stop. Alright, you might think, I just won't go into the water, I'll just sunbathe on the beach. Bad idea. On land, you'll be greeted by the island's true owners, wild dingoes. They look like cute ginger mutts that you'd want to scratch behind the ear and share your sandwich with. That would be a fatal mistake. The dingoes on Fraser Island are purebred, aggressive predators that aren't afraid of humans. They hunt in packs, like wolves. Dozens of attacks are reported every year. They steal food, bite adults, and might even try to drag an unattended small child into the forest. A dingo's grin is the last thing you'd want to see up close. If you decide to leave the beach and head into the forest, watch your step. The sand and leaves hide some of Australia's most venomous creatures. Here live Sydney funnel web spiders, whose bite can pierce a fingernail and kill an adult in 15 minutes. And eastern brown snakes, the second most venomous land snakes in the world. Let's move to the USA, to the state of Montana. Here, right on the outskirts of the city of Butte, there is a body of water that looks like a set from an environmental apocalypse movie. This is Berkeley Pit Lake. From a bird's eye view, it appears strange, a mesmerizing eye of the earth. The water here has an unnatural, ominous, reddish-black or burgundy hue. But don't let this grim aesthetic fool you. Before you is the most toxic lake in America, and possibly in the entire world. The story of this place began as a tale of human greed. There used to be a giant open-pit copper mine here. For decades, people dug into the earth, extracting ore. But in 1982, mining operations stopped. The pumps that drained the groundwater were turned off, and the pit began to fill up slowly. And that's when the chemical disaster began. As the water passed through the rocks, it reacted with oxygen and pyrite. The result was sulfuric acid. Today, the Berkeley Pit is not water in the usual sense, but a hellish chemical soup with a volume of 150 billion liters. The acidity, the pH here, is so high that this liquid can corrode metal just like in the Alien movies. But the acid is only half the problem. This solution contains almost the entire periodic table: arsenic, cadmium, zinc, lead, and copper in deadly concentrations. If you put your hand in this water, you'll suffer a severe chemical burn. If you take a sip, your internal organs will start to fail one after another, faster than an ambulance can arrive. The most terrifying demonstration of this lake's power happened in November 2016. A huge flock of white snow geese migrating south was looking for a place to rest. Seeing the vast expanse of water from above, the birds decided they had found the perfect refuge. That was a fatal mistake. Several thousand birds landed on the waters of Berkeley Pit. In the morning, townspeople and environmentalists witnessed a nightmarish scene. The surface of the Black Lake was strewn with thousands of white corpses. Those geese that didn't die immediately tried to take off but couldn't. The autopsy revealed that the water had literally burned their esophagi and destroyed their kidneys from the inside in just one night. The lake digested them alive. The scariest part is that the water level in Berkeley Pit keeps rising. It's a ticking time bomb. If the water reaches a critical level and mixes with the groundwater, the poison will contaminate the entire valley's water supply. Scientists constantly monitor the water level and try to purify the water. But for now, Berkeley Pit remains a giant open grave, reminding us that nature always collects on the debts we owe it, and the price may be too high. Let's move to Egypt, to the coast of the Red Sea, to the resort town of Dahab. This is a mecca for divers from all over the world. Warm water, coral reefs, colorful fish. But just a few meters from the shore lies a place that divers whisper about, a graveyard for scuba divers. Its official name is the Blue Hole. From the shore, it looks like a natural wonder. A huge, perfectly round sinkhole right in the reef. The water inside is a deep, rich blue, sharply contrasting with the turquoise of the shallow water. It seems like the perfect pool for diving. No currents, no waves, the shore is close by. But this accessibility is the main trap. The Blue Hole has claimed more lives than any other dive site in the world. According to unofficial data, more than 200 people have remained forever at the bottom of this sinkhole. The mechanism of death here is both sophisticated and psychological. At a depth of about 55 meters, the wall of the well ends, revealing a passage to the open sea, the famous arch. It is a majestic tunnel through which the magical blue light of the ocean shines. The sight of this light has a hypnotic effect on divers. It seems to them that the exit is very close. But this is a deadly optical illusion. At such a depth, a person begins to experience nitrogen narcosis, also known as the Martini effect. Nitrogen under pressure affects the brain like alcohol or laughing gas. The diver loses their sense of reality, fear disappears, and coordination is impaired. Seeing the light at the end of the arch, the diver starts swimming toward it, not realizing that the tunnel is actually long, 26 meters, and the current there can be against them. Intoxicated by the depth, the person stops monitoring their instruments. They think they're swimming toward the exit, but in reality, they're descending lower and lower. The air runs out, consciousness fades, and the person simply sinks slowly, mesmerized by the beautiful light. On the shore, right at the water's edge, the rocks are covered with dozens of memorial plaques. James, 22 years old. Stephen, 35 years old, did not return. There are so many that the Egyptian authorities have banned putting up new ones so as not to scare off tourists. New names continue to be added to the tragic list. The most chilling testimony to the treachery of the Blue Hole is the story of instructor Yuri Lipsky. He dove here with a camera. He filmed his own death. In the video, you can see him, overcome by nitrogen narcosis, uncontrollably falling to the bottom. He looks at the depth gauge, sees the fatal numbers, but his brain can no longer give the command to save himself. The camera kept filming the bottom until rescuers retrieved it along with his body. We've reached the finale, and here is where the games with acid lakes and poisonous snakes end. The most terrifying place on Earth is at the top of the world. Everest is the dream of every mountaineer. The roof of the planet, a place of heroism and glory. But at an altitude of 8,000 meters, in the so-called death zone, there is an area with a fairy tale name, the Rainbow Valley. Sounds like a place from a children's cartoon, doesn't it? Are you picturing shimmering lights on glaciers or a rare atmospheric phenomenon? Reality will hit you like a punch to the gut. The rainbow here isn't made of light, it's made of human bodies. Rainbow Valley is the highest altitude open-air cemetery in the world. The bright spots you see on the snow, red, blue, orange, toxic green, are the down jackets of fallen climbers. Hundreds of bodies lie here. Because of the extreme cold and dry air, they do not decompose. They lie as if they sat down to rest just 5 minutes ago. Some are curled up, others lie face down in the snow, and some stare with glassy eyes at the sky they so long to reach. The wind tugs at their hoods, creating the illusion of life. But it is only an illusion. Why aren't they removed? This is the main question people down below ask. The answer is simple and horrifying. It's impossible. At such an altitude, the human body doesn't live, it slowly dies. Every step is a struggle, like running a marathon. Helicopters can't fly here because of the thin air. The body of a fallen climber, frozen to the bone along with their gear, weighs nearly 150 kilograms. To bring down a single body, you need an expedition of 10 professional Sherpas, and each of them will be risking their life. The most chilling example of this madness is the story of the Green Boots. This is the body of the Indian climber Tsewang Paljor, who died in 1996. He froze to death, hiding in a small rocky recess next to the trail. For almost 20 years, he lay there, curled up on his side in his bright green plastic boots. And for all those 20 years, hundreds of other climbers literally stepped over his legs to reach the summit. A person stopped being a person. He became a road sign. On the radios, you could hear, "Where are you now? I just passed the green boots. I'll be at the summit soon." The Rainbow Valley is a place where morality dies and only the bare instinct to survive remains. If you're heading to the summit and see someone dying, you won't stop, you won't help, you won't give up your oxygen, because then you'll lie down next to them and become a new color in this terrifying rainbow. People walk past the dying, turning their eyes away for the sake of a summit selfie. This is a cemetery of vanity, where the dead in bright jackets serve as an eternal reminder nature is always stronger and it doesn't care about your ambitions. This is perhaps the most beautiful and the most inhuman place on earth. Now you know what hides behind those perfect photos on the internet. Which of these places would you never visit under any circumstances? Write in the comments, leave a like if you felt a chill down your spine, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. There are still many beautiful traps in the world that it's better to know about in advance. Take care of yourselves and see you next time.